All right, so are you ready to dive headfirst into the IELTS speaking test?
Head first.
And want to make sure you absolutely crush part one,
Especially.
especially when those tech-related questions come up?
Yeah.
We've got you covered in this deep dive.
We do.
We're dissecting an episode of the IELTS Made Easy podcast with Emma and Sam,
Oh, those two.
pulling out the juiciest tips and strategies to help you handle anything the examiner throws your way.
Anything.
We'll break down some common questions, analyze a practice role play, and even get into those nitty-gritty tactics for scoring a band 7 or higher.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is like the golden ticket in IELTS land.
The golden ticket?
It shows you've got a real handle on the English language.
You know, it's smart to focus on the technology theme because no matter what your interests or background are,
Right.
you're bound to use tech in your daily life.
Yeah.
And let's be honest,
Yeah.
being able to chat about it confidently is a win, not just for the test,
Right.
but for basically, well, existing in the 21st century.
So, okay, to set the stage, IELTS Speaking Part 1 is like a mini interview.
Okay.
The examiner asks you about familiar stuff like work hobbies, or as we're focusing on today, technology. It's all about showing you can express yourself clearly and naturally.
The thing is, even with those seemingly simple questions, you can really stand out by how you structure your answer.
Yeah.
Emma and Sam kick off the episode with a classic.
Okay.
Do you like using technology?
It does seem pretty basic, right?
It does.
But their model answer shows how you can turn even a simple yes or no question into a chance to shine.
Exactly. Sam, in the podcast, lays out a brilliant structure.
Okay.
He starts with a direct answer. Yes, I really enjoy using technology. But then he doesn't stop there.
Okay.
He adds a reason. It makes my life so much easier.
Okay.
And then seals the deal with a specific example,
Uh-huh.
like how he uses his smartphone to manage his to-do list.
Oh, wow.
This answer, reason, example structure is pure gold.
Hold on, can we pause on that for a second? Because I used to think, isn't that a bit too formulaic? But now I see how it keeps things super clear for the examiner, especially when you're nervous.
You're so right.
Yeah.
It's not about sounding robotic.
Right.
It's about having a framework that helps you deliver your thoughts in a logical, easy-to-follow way. Imagine explaining to a friend why you love a certain coffee shop.
Right.
You wouldn't just say, it's great. You'd tell them why.
Yeah.
Maybe the coffee's amazing or the atmosphere is perfect.
Yeah.
And then you might even share a story about a memorable time you spent there.
Right.
It's the same idea here.
Okay. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And I bet it helps you avoid those rambling answers that can sometimes happen when the pressure's on.
Definitely.
So structure is key. What else did Emma and Sam highlight in the podcast?
Well, they move on to another super common question.
Okay.
What devices do you use every day?
Oh, yeah.
This is where you can add some personality and showcase your vocabulary.
I like the...
Emma gives a great example by focusing on her smartphone and laptop.
Okay.
But then she doesn't just list them.
Right.
She dives into specifics about how she uses each one.
Okay.
Her smartphone for scheduling and staying in touch. And her laptop for work, stuff like emails and presentations.
What I love about that is it shows she's really thought about how technology fits into different parts of her life.
Yeah.
It's not just, oh, I use my phone for everything.
Right.
It's more nuanced than that.
Exactly. And that nuance is what makes her answer stand out.
Yeah.
It's like she's painting a picture for the examiner, showing them that she's not just familiar with technology. She's engaged with it in a thoughtful way.
That's such a good point. I can see how that would impress the examiner.
Yeah.
So we've got some solid strategies for those basic tech questions.
Right.
But what about when things get a bit more challenging?
Well, that's where Emma and Sam's teacher-student role plays come in.
Oh, fun.
They actually act out good answers, which is super helpful. One role play that really caught my attention
Okay.
was about how technology has changed the way we work.
Oh, yeah, that's a relevant one, especially with so much talk about remote work and flexible schedules these days.
Totally.
How did Sam handle that question in the role play?
He nailed it.
Okay.
Not only did he give a clear yes, but he backed it up with a solid explanation of how tech enables remote work flexible hours.
Right.
And even how the pandemic accelerated these trends.
Oh, wow.
And to really drive the point home, he name-dropped tools like Zoom and Slack.
Using specific tech terms.
Yeah.
That's one of the tips they mention later on, right?
Yeah.
It's like instead of saying, I use the internet for video calls, you could say, I use Zoom for video conferencing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a subtle shift, but it shows a deeper command of vocabulary. But you know what I found even more impressive about Sam's answer?
Yeah.
Was how he connected it to the bigger picture.
Okay.
This shift to remote work is a massive global trend.
Right.
And being able to articulate that shows the examiner you're aware of the wider impact of technology, not just your personal use.
That's such a smart strategy.
It is.
It's like you're demonstrating you can think critically about technology and its role in the world.
Exactly.
I'm taking notes here.
Good.
So we've seen how to tackle a question about how technology impacts work.
Right.
What other role plays did they do in the podcast?
Well, there's another classic IELTS question they tackled.
Okay.
What's your favorite piece of technology and why?
Oh, that's a good one.
This one might seem simple,
Yeah.
but it's actually a great opportunity to showcase your vocabulary and your ability to explain your preferences clearly.
It's like a chance to geek out a little bit, right?
A little bit.
And I'm all for that.
Me too.
What did Emma pick as her favorite piece of tech in the role play?
She went with the Kindle.
Oh, interesting.
And what's interesting here
Yeah.
is that her choice reveals a smart strategy for IELTS.
Okay.
It lets her talk about reading technology and environmental awareness. It's like a triple threat in terms of vocabulary.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Plus, she highlights how convenient and portable it is,
Mm-hmm.
which are really strong selling points.
I can definitely see the appeal of having a whole library in your pocket.
Yeah.
But isn't there a risk that if you pick something too obscure,
Mm-hmm.
the examiner might not know what you're talking about?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
You definitely want to choose something that's widely recognized and relatable.
Okay.
But you can also use that opportunity to briefly explain what it is,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
especially if it's something that ties into your hobbies or interests.
So it's like a balancing act.
Yeah,
You want to choose something interesting and personal,
right.
but also make sure the examiner can follow along.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm trying to see how these role plays can be really insightful for prepping for the IELTS speaking test.
For sure.
What else did they cover in this part of the podcast?
Well, they moved on to dissect what makes those role-play answers so effective.
Oh, good.
And that's where they started giving their top tips for scoring a band 7 or higher.
Ooh, that's the good stuff. Let's dive into those tips in part 2 of our deep dive. We'll be back in a flash with more insights from Emma and Sam, so don't go anywhere.
I'll be here.
All right, let's pick up right where we left off with those juicy tips Emma and Sam shared for scoring a band 7 or higher in IELTS Speaking Part 1.
Higher.
Remember when Emma and Sam talk about getting a band 7 or higher?
Uh-huh.
They're referring to the scoring system IELTS uses.
Right.
Band 7 is considered a good score, showing you're fluent and can handle complex topics.
It's a good one.
It's like getting a gold star from the IELTS gods.
And the cool thing is these tips aren't just for acing the test.
Right.
They're valuable communication skills you can use in any conversation.
Yeah.
Whether it's a job interview
Mm-hmm.
or just chatting with friends at a party.
Okay, so spill the beans. What were some of their top tips?
Well, first up, Sam emphasized the importance of organization.
Okay.
And guess what? It all comes back to that answer, reason, example structure we were talking about earlier.
Of course.
Think of it like building a mini argument.
Okay.
You state your position,
Right.
give your reason why,
Right.
and then back it up with evidence.
It's like creating a clear roadmap for the examiner to follow.
Right.
And I can definitely see how that would be helpful when you're feeling nervous and your mind's racing a mile a minute.
Exactly. It's like having a secret weapon to keep your thoughts organized and your speech flowing smoothly. Now, Emma's tip focused on vocabulary,
Okay.
and she's all about using specific tech terms instead of generic language.
Right.
Like, instead of saying, I use the internet for video calls,
Right.
you'd say, I use Zoom for video conferencing.
But isn't there a risk that if you use a term the examiner doesn't know, it could backfire? Like maybe they're not super tech savvy?
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
You definitely want to choose terms that are widely known and understood.
Right.
It's not about showing off obscure jargon.
Yeah.
It's about demonstrating a wider range of vocabulary
Mm.
and your ability to express yourself precisely.
Makes sense. So it's like finding that sweet spot between using impressive vocabulary,
Yeah,
but also making sure you're communicating clearly.
exactly.
What other tips did they have up their sleeves?
Well, Sam had some great advice about fluency and sounding natural.
Oh, that's important.
He stressed that you shouldn't memorize answers word for word.
Okay.
It's much better to practice speaking about tech topics in your own words.
Right.
You can respond authentically in the moment.
Oh my gosh. I remember when I was prepping for exams, I used to try and memorize entire essays.
Yeah.
It never worked.
It's tough.
Sounding natural is way more important.
It is.
It's like you can tell when someone's reciting something from memory,
Yeah,
and it just doesn't connect in the same way.
exactly. It comes across as stiff and robotic. The goal is to sound like you're having a genuine conversation, even though it's a test.
Right. And speaking of sounding natural, Emma reminds us to avoid those dreaded one-word answers.
The dreaded one-word answers.
Even for yes or no questions.
Yes. Even for seemingly simple questions, elaboration is key.
Right.
It's about showcasing your ability to communicate effectively, not just giving the bare minimum.
So instead of just saying, yes, I use technology every day,
Yeah.
you'd give a reason like, yes, I use technology every day because it helps me stay connected with friends and family who live far away.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And you could even add an example.
Okay.
Like, for instance, I use WhatsApp to video chat with my sister who lives in Australia.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. It's all about giving those reasons and examples to really flesh out your answers and make them more compelling. What was their final tip?
Sam's last tip is all about using connectors to enhance the flow of your speech.
Oh, connectors.
Words like, for example, also, and, on the other hand, can make a huge difference.
It's like those little bridges that connect your ideas together and make your speech more sophisticated and pleasant to listen to. It's like the difference between a choppy sea and a smooth sail.
What's great about all these tips is that they're actionable.
Yeah.
You can start implementing them right away in your IELTS preparation. And you know, the best part is
What's that?
they're not just for the test. They're valuable skills that will serve you well in any speaking situation.
Right.
Whether it's job interview or presentation or even just chatting with friends.
It's like you're leveling up your communication skills across the board.
Across the board.
So we've covered those essential tips.
We have.
What came next in the podcast?
Well, they wrapped up with a quick fire round, tackling even more IELTS Speaking Part 1 questions.
Fun.
But with shorter, more concise answers.
Okay.
It's a great way to see how you can apply those tips we just discussed
Right.
in a more fast-paced setting.
Oh, I love a good rapid fire round.
Me too.
It's like a mental workout.
It is.
What kind of questions did they throw out there?
One of the first questions was, how often do you use the internet?
Okay.
And Emma's answer was a great example of how to showcase variety even in a short response.
Okay.
Instead of just saying a lot or every day, she listed specific activities like browsing for news, watching YouTube videos, and connecting with friends on social media.
It's like she's giving the examiner a glimpse into her digital life.
Yeah.
Showing that she's an active and engaged internet user.
Exactly.
And it subtly highlights her vocabulary range, too.
Subtly does it.
Right.
Exactly. It's all about maximizing those opportunities to showcase your skills.
Yeah.
Now, another question they tackled was, do you think older people use technology as much as younger people?
Okay.
This one could be a bit tricky, but Sam handled it really well.
This is where those anxieties come in, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, what if you accidentally say something offensive or insensitive?
That's why it's so important to be mindful and respectful of different perspectives.
Right.
Sam acknowledged that there's often a difference in tech adoption between generations,
Okay.
pointing out that older people may find it more challenging to adapt to new technologies, while younger people have grown up with them.
It's about recognizing those generational differences without making generalizations or stereotypes.
Okay.
And I bet a personal anecdote could add a nice touch here, too.
Absolutely. Sam actually shared a quick story about his grandparents who still prefer landline phones over smartphones.
Ah.
It's relatable, it adds a personal touch, and it illustrates his point perfectly.
Okay, so even in those quick-fire situations, you can still deliver thoughtful and well-structured answers.
You can.
I'm starting to feel more confident about tackling those tricky questions.
Good.
What other insights did they share in this part of the podcast?
Well, they rounded things off by emphasizing the importance of practice.
Of course.
The more you practice answering questions out loud, the more confident and fluent you'll become.
Right.
And they reminded us to focus on clarity fluency and those specific details when we speak. It's not about using fancy words or complex sentence structures.
Right.
It's about communicating your ideas effectively.
It's like that saying, practice makes perfect. Or at least practice makes progress.
It does.
But I think we know practice can be a bit, well, boring.
It can be.
Any tips from Emma and Sam on how to make it more fun?
They actually suggest recording yourself answering practice questions
Whoa.
and then listening back to identify areas where you can improve.
No, that's a good idea.
It's like having your own personal IELTS coach.
Yeah.
You can also practice with a friend or language partner.
That's a great idea. And it takes some of the pressure off, too. You can be more relaxed and experimental when you're practicing with someone you trust.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired to get practicing. So we've covered common questions, role plays, top tips, and even a quick fire round.
A lot of ground.
What did Emma and Sam leave us with as we head into the final part of this deep dive?
They left us with a powerful reminder.
Okay.
This deep dive isn't just about passing a test. It's about equipping you with the skills and confidence to navigate a world that's increasingly intertwined with technology.
So true.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Being able to talk about tech clearly and effectively
Mm-hmm.
opens up so many doors.
It's like you're not just learning English, you're learning the language of the future. Okay, I'm ready for those final insights. Bring on part 3. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive, from nailing those common tech questions
A lot.
to mastering the art of the answer, reason, example structure, and even navigating those quick-fire challenges.
Yeah, a lot.
But here's the thing, as Emma and Sam emphasize, this isn't just about acing the IELTS.
It's not just about the test.
Right?
It's about equipping you with the skills and confidence to thrive in a world that's increasingly shaped by technology.
Right.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Whether you're explaining your favorite app to a friend
Mm-hmm.
or discussing the latest tech trends at work,
Mm-hmm.
these communication skills are invaluable.
It's like you're not just prepping for a test, you're becoming a more effective communicator in every aspect of your life.
Every aspect.
Which honestly is way more motivating than just focusing on the exam itself.
Absolutely. And you know what really struck me as we were going through this episode? Is how Emma and Sam subtly weave in this idea of not just answering questions about technology,
Right.
but asking them to.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't even thought about that. Why is asking questions about technology so important?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
It shows curiosity, critical thinking,
Okay.
and a desire to learn more.
Right.
It's like instead of passively consuming technology, you're actively engaging with it,
Right.
trying to understand how it works and how it impacts the world around you.
I can see how that would be a valuable skill, not just for the IELTS, but for life in general. It's like the more questions you ask, the more you learn and grow.
Exactly. And who knows? Maybe your next insightful question will spark an innovation that changes the world.
Ooh, I like
It's all about fostering that sense of curiosity and wonder.
Okay, I'm officially inspired to start asking more questions about the tech that surrounds me, but I have to admit, sometimes I get a bit intimidated.
Intimidated.
Like, what if my questions sound silly or naive?
You know, I think it's important to remember that everyone starts somewhere.
Right.
Nobody is born a tech expert,
Yeah.
and even the most experienced techies are constantly learning and evolving.
Right.
So embrace those questions.
Yeah.
It's how we learn and grow.
And it's probably how those tech experts got to where they are today, right? By asking questions and challenging assumptions.
Absolutely.
Oh.
So as you continue your IELTS journey, remember that you're not just learning vocabulary and grammar, you're developing a toolkit for success in a digital age.
Right.
And that toolkit includes the power of asking insightful questions.
So to wrap up this deep dive, let's take a moment to appreciate the incredible insights Emma and Sam have shared with us.
They're great.
They've given us a roadmap to success in IELTS Speaking Part 1, especially when it comes to those tech-related questions. But even more importantly, they've reminded us that learning to communicate effectively about technology is a skill that will benefit us in countless ways, far beyond the exam room. It's about becoming confident, engaging communicators who can navigate the ever-evolving world of technology. So as you prepare for your IELTS speaking test, remember to practice those tips, embrace those questions, and most importantly, have fun with it.
Have fun.
Happy learning, everyone! We'll catch you on the next deep dive.